Good morning, everybody, and welcome along to this edition of LiR Confidential on LiRmedia.tv. And we have an email for the program. If you want to make any comments, it's email the info@LiRmedia.tv. I'm delighted to have Counsellor Ken Smollen back with us again. Ken has been on with us, just as we were remarked before we came on air, so over 6 months, but as we say, the times we're in, Ken, every day is almost the same as every other day now. You know something, Ken? I was thinking coming in this morning, there's a marked difference in people since the last time I spoke to you, certainly down around here. The deterioration in their mental well-being, even their physical health, and even in the country in general is just appalling. I notice it myself because I'm out every day, you know. I don't know about you up around where you are. Councillor Ken Smollen, I must say, is a councillor in County Offaly for all our listeners coming to this for the first time. Anyway, good morning, Ken.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Pat, for having me on again. And it's hard to believe that it is actually 6 months or thereabouts since I was last on. But you were talking about people not knowing that every day seems to be like the others. I was talking to a mother of a number of children last night, and one of her children, the birthday is today, and she actually thought it was the day after tomorrow, like that was last night. So she didn't realize it was today, because now she is suffering tremendously because they're locked in, and there are people close to them, living close to them, that have COVID. They're afraid to let the kids out. They won't even let the kids go to school, even though a couple of them could be going to school. But people just don't know. A Sunday is the same as a Wednesday now to a lot of people. Just days don't seem to matter. They just roll into each other, and people have no idea what day it is even.
Now, I was reading a few bits and pieces about you, about the motion that I think when you spoke at that county council meeting, you echoed an awful lot what people are saying. First of all, we are tired. I am tired. This is my own personal opinion, of listening to figures here and figures there, and lock down this county, lock down that county. There is no appreciation of people doing the best they can. It's not reflected in the day-to-day conversation of how horrendous the sacrifices people are making. And when you spoke at that county council meeting, I mean, it's not rocket science. If the authorities know where these hotspots are of the breakouts, it will inform local people to say, look, we will not go there, or whatever, Ken. I think that's what you were getting at, was it?
Yeah, well, look, Pat, I will always, and probably to my detriment, I will always say what I feel. I'm not going to hide anything. I try to do my very best and to do what's right by people, because, you know, I owe people a lot, because they put me in my position, and I'm not just here. You know, unfortunately, most politicians, when they get elected, their main job is to look down the years to 4 or 5 years to get re-elected. Like, that doesn't concern me. I want to do the best I can for people. I have 5 young grandchildren now at this stage, and I want them growing up in a world that's better than the one we're in right now. And what I said at last week's Offaly County Council meeting, I believe that the wool has been pulled over our eyes. Offaly County Council issued a press release the night before last, and it just does not bear any semblance to reality on the ground, as far as I'm concerned. And I did contact council management to say that I wanted to be disassociated from that press release, because it just is not. It's political spin, and everything is grand, and thanking everybody for making things better, and we're all heading in the right direction. When the reality is that here in Offaly in particular, the situation is actually getting worse. We are by far the highest. We're twice as high as the second highest county of Longford. We are in a serious situation. Now, I don't want to see the people of County Offaly and the businesses closed down and being on our own, left in level 5. And we heard Nevitt the other night saying that possibly with further restrictions placed on us. Now, they're talking about the highest areas, but that includes Offaly, and probably only Offaly. Whereas nothing really is being done to cure this situation. Now, I have asked all of these organisations. I've asked Offaly County Council at last Monday's Offaly County Council meeting. I asked that they liaise with the HSE and NEFID in order to pinpoint these locations. Now, I'm not trying to, name and shame anybody. First of all, there is no shame. Any one of us could catch this disease.
Of course,
It doesn't matter how rich or poor we are, we're all susceptible to this thing. So we really are all in this together. But I don't want people named, but I do want locations named. If it's a factory that this outbreak is in, well, then name that factory and let people know in that area, because they will be more careful, and people employed there and their families will be more careful. Because right now we're all suffering from COVID fatigue, and you can see it on the streets. The level 5 lockdown now is a lot different than it was this time last year. There are loads of cars on the streets. There are loads of people on the streets. There are people on the streets drinking coffee. And you will see, unfortunately, a lot of people not wearing masks or taking the appropriate protections. And then again, we have so many people out there who are spreading the word that this isn't a real virus and that it's all some kind of a government conspiracy. And, it's stuff that sadly a lot of people are taking note of, but we have to get the message out there to people. We need to be careful. I personally know a few people that, 2 people that died, and I knew them personally. I know people right now who are ill with COVID. I know people that are seriously ill with COVID. And, we just have to...
Actually, since I spoke to you last, I lost my own mum in November. She was 91. She was in a nursing home.
I'm sorry to hear that, Pat.
Oh, no. It was that she was suffering from severe dementia, cancer, the crater. It was a loss and a relief, to see the emotion of the crater,
we don't want to see them suffer.
Absolutely. And of course, she was in a nursing home and faced all the challenges that everybody in a nursing home does. But I think myself, one thing that could ease our fatigue of COVID is that our national broadcaster should not have NEFID on 2 days a week, 7 days a week, telling us all this nonsense. I think that once a week would be sufficient for them. They are not the government, and the problem with frustration of people have the perception now that those 2 or 3 people are running the country. And that is a wrong optic for me and for all the citizenry. We know what to do. We've got the message. There'll always be an element that won't do anything, no matter what you say, other than handcuffing them. But so I think that the people from NEFID should stay off the airwaves from a daily basis, because there's huge challenges for people, and this does not help their mental health, in my opinion.
No, the mental health of the general population is really going downwards, and we're going to see this over the next few years. We're not really going to see it now for the next few months, but people are really a lot of people are in a bad place right now. And even when an ordinary funeral happens, it doesn't have to be someone that died with COVID or from COVID. To allow 10 people into a church, there's something radically wrong with that. If you go to a supermarket after being at that funeral, you'll see hundreds of people in the supermarket, people leaning over each other. And it just, look, I was at a funeral recently, and I just went to the cemetery because it was somebody close enough. And I still can't get it into my head that person is actually gone. And, I'm saying it here for the first time. I actually, even though I wasn't that close to that person, I actually went to the cemetery again only last week. The person died 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Just to convince myself that person was actually there in the cemetery. You'd almost be expecting that person to see that person on the street again. And if you did see that person on the street again, you wouldn't be surprised. You'd say, oh, yeah, Jesus.
In my own case, my mum, it was shocking. There was 8 of us there. And if we had to head here to the tent to be madness, but slightly over, but huge church, no one inside it. After spending her 91 years, not because she was my mum, was a stalwart to the community.
Yeah.
It was a shocking indictment of where we are. And you said there's thousands and thousands of people going through our supermarkets every day, and we can only have 10 people in. This is the frustration. We went to the graveyard and there was almost as many under the coffin as there was inside in the graveyard. It's a shocking indictment of the way people are being treated.
It's absolutely terrible.
It's really just discrimination at this stage.
The problem is, Pat, that we have, as far as I'm concerned, in my opinion, because I don't like to, I don't force my opinions on anybody. Everybody's entitled to an opinion, and everybody's entitled to criticize me and say that I'm wrong, and I will engage with those people too. But in my opinion, we have a leaderless government. We have a directionless government. We have more and more people are beginning to have no faith in this government. Of course, you're going to get the stalwarts that will support and follow them through thick and thin, no matter what they do. But more and more people just have total disrespect for the government and for politics in general. They just see every politician out there as someone that just wants to, fleece the country for everything that's possible. Whereas I know that that's not the case. There's a lot of them like that, but there are some very decent politicians out there.
Of course there are, yeah.
And they're being silenced.
Yeah, and what I can't understand, I normally don't listen to them in the morning, but I was on my way in. I heard Pascal O'Donoghue on one of the stations talking about easing restrictions and all of this nonsense. Now, I cannot understand, Ken, how come an off license just across the road from us here where we are in Limerick is an essential service and the barber shop next door is not?
Yeah.
You riddle me that one now.
Yeah, it just does not make sense. We know women in particular, a lot of women need to get their hair done, and it's an outlet for them after a tough day at home, working at home, and they need that social contact with the hairdresser and with the other people that might be there. It just doesn't make sense to me that people, that these things are happening and we're being clamped down on this. While there's so much more happening, while there's thousands of people coming through our airports, and that, we know that they're talking about clamping down on that now. But
there's 12,000 people came in there a couple of days ago to Dublin Airport.
Yeah, it just does not.
Are you going to tell me, Ken, that they're all self-isolating for 10 or 14 days?
Yeah, it just does not make sense. None of it makes sense. They're being told, and if you ask that question, the answer will be, well, it's an offence if they don't. Well, so bloody what if it's an offence? It doesn't mean they're going to abide by the rules or by the restrictions. These people are coming in, and it was reported only during the week there that I think there was 34,000 people came through Dublin Airport over the period of 2 weeks, and that most of them were actually visiting or on holiday. Yeah. And yet 10 people are allowed to go to a church. People are being locked in. What's happening in our nursing homes is absolutely criminal. It's wrong that our people be treated like that. These are elderly people who have worked hard all of their lives. They've built this country, and now we're allowing them to be treated like that. I think it's absolutely wrong.
Yeah, and the prisoners, not Antiguans, prisoners in Mountjoy have more rights than the senior citizens in our nursing homes.
Exactly, yeah. It's just wrong what's happening.
It's just shocking. And about the airports, what's happening in the airports, it's just, I don't know what the answer is, but I think there's a huge frustration now with people. 12 months on, we were told, 12 months ago almost, as you know yourself, Ken, we're locked down, flattened the curve, and stay at home. We opened up, locked down, put on masks, and keep wearing masks and flatten the curve. Vaccination came, we got vaccinated, we're still locked down, wearing masks, vaccinated, washing hands, social distancing. And yet, it's a virus. We'll have to live with it. We'll have to decide someday as a country to say, okay, guys, we're opening up the country. We have to live with this. Anybody who's susceptible to this, stay at home and the rest of you off. Live your life. Life is for living, not for misery, in my opinion. And I think it's time to change tack myself and open up businesses, because not alone physically killing people, the horrendous deaths I've heard from my own part of the country of suicides is shocking. And I was talking to another county man of your own just on the phone. I won't mention his name now in this program. He was telling me two of his friends. We were talking about people now in their late 50s, early 60s who committed suicide. And the man I was speaking to on the phone was just distraught, you know, lives destroyed.
It will take a generation, even if this thing ended next week. It will take a generation. Now, when I talk about a generation, we're talking about 20, 30, 40 years to recover from this, because the mental stress and trauma that people are feeling now isn't just going to go away. This is going to affect people for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
You know, and what they've gone through and what their families have gone through and the people they've lost, and without being able to properly grieve for those people. You know, last year, I remember, you know, you'd be listening to the deaths on the list of deaths on the radio, and they'd be saying that, well, we will have some sort of a memorial or commemoration of whatever of that person's life once COVID is over. You know, COVID is not over, and those people will just be forgotten, and the families will be there left to think, nobody remembers my dad or my mum or my brother or sister or my child or whatever. And it's taking a huge toll on people's life. And as you said, people are actually dying because they're taking their own lives out of absolute total desperation.
I know, and I see my own dad now. Thankfully, he's still healthy. He's 90. He's living at home with my brother's looking after him. Well, he's physically fine and all. He's just old, that's all, thank God. And he said, I noticed at the funeral at the time, I mean, he couldn't, I mean, if there were more people allowed, you know, more familiar faces, you'd have that kind of support, which was missing from it, you know, which was, I'm speaking to Counsellor Ken Smollen here on LiR Confidential from County Offaly. Now, Ken, I noticed myself even in Shannon where I live, there's a food bank every Thursday. Now, I never noticed, well, I knew it was there, sorry, I knew it was there, and there's some fantastic people staffing it in our voluntary level. But I decided myself, thankfully, I don't need it myself yet. one can never be sure. And I was going up to the town centre for on another thing, and I just swung by where it was. Gosh almighty, Ken, the amount of people availing of that. I don't know you. I know you have your own charity as well, the KS Food Appeal charity, which is doing phenomenal work in the whole Midlands area, Ken. How do you find it? Has the need for this kind of thing increased, or how do you find it?
No, it is increasing, Pat. Now I have to say it's increasing slowly at the moment. Right now, as of this morning, we have 939 families on that list. But I've no doubt, give this a few months, when there are.
And how does it work? Do you just in nuts and bolts? Do people, like, if I was one of those families that contacted you up there now in the Midlands, would you, the charity, deliver to my house, is it? Or would I go somewhere and collect it? Or how does it work?
It's up to the people themselves. I actually deliver to people's homes. I start off very early each morning, especially since this COVID outbreak. And if I don't have the button on the kettle pressed in the morning at 4:30, well, then I'm late. Because I want to get off the road by about 9:30, because I want to protect my own family, myself.
Of course.
And I certainly do not want to meet people for me to pass something on to them, something that I might have that's not affecting me. None of us know we have this, but I deliver to those people's homes. I leave the bag outside their door, or I leave it inside the gate or whatever. But those people, you know, and even the people that help me on this, they have no idea where I go with this. I guarantee people total confidentiality, because there is an awful feeling of shame and embarrassment with people. And the very fact is that no matter how long this goes, we're never going to get to the vast majority of people that are experiencing food poverty. And that's what I'm trying to instill into people, that not one person other than myself will ever know that you have received help. There's no markings on my van, and there won't be, and I call very late at night or very early in the morning.
Well, these are things I'd never think of. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wouldn't think of it. And of course, you have to forward plan for all of that.
Well, you do. Well, you see, that's why the largest charity in the country, and it's government funded as well. People are not contacting that charity because they will send in 2 volunteers to see what the situation is, and they're basically judging people and judging their way of life. And people are being asked, well, why have you got Sky channels, or why have you got so many channels? Why is your hallway clean? If your hallway is clean, you're not poor enough to get help. And if they are poor enough to get help, then we'll send this to a meeting next week, and then you'll hear from us the following week. Now, that means it's 2 weeks. If somebody contacts me today, it means they're hungry today. It means that they need help today. And I get to them as soon as I possibly can. Now, and thankfully, I have a few teams around the Midlands now that are doing something similar. And I also have another gentleman that's actually delivering food to me. But I contacted each one of those families and I asked them if it was okay. A lot of families said no, they'd rather that nobody else knew. But some of the families that said yes, it's okay. Well, I have given those to another man to actually deliver on my behalf.
Yeah. And you're right there about people. I mean, for me to pick up a phone to a food charity is a huge, huge, huge embarrassing thing for me personally as a human being. And then if the people at the other side of the phone, I'm not being judgmental, they probably don't have an appreciation of that in the beginning. And as you said, if they come out to my house, that's a double whammy for me. That means that I want to contact them again. Not because of a judgmental fact on their part. I can understand why they need to ensure that thing. But to me, I think it's very simple. If I pick up the phone to KS Food Appeal, it always invariably means I'm in desperate situation.
Yeah.
To be a double whammy is just because I spoke to a man probably 2 months ago now. I just met him and I know him for a while, and he lives on his own like myself, and we're chatting away, and he said, Pat, I had to phone, I won't mention the charity, I had to phone so-and-so, and he said I had to look for food. Come Sunday evening, I had no money and I had no food in the house, and I had no way of getting it.
Yeah. Look, Pat, you see, this whole thing is it's an extremely complex thing, and every day, even for me, I'm at it for the last 5 years now, but I learn something new every day about how people feel about this thing and why people are not making contact. If you phone that charity I was talking about today, you'll be talking to Tom, Mick, Mary, Harry, or John, and if you phone them the following day because you've heard nothing from them, you'll be talking to different people. And the problem is that the volunteers with that charity are all local people. So therefore, somebody in your locality knows that you're poor, knows that you need help, and knows that you have rang looking for help with food. That turns people off completely because they will not want anyone to know. And I have been asked, I was contacted by the rehab group asking me what my thoughts were on having a food bank in Tullamore. And I immediately said, no, it wouldn't work, because in Dublin, you can be or in the larger centres. I'm not even sure about Limerick, because Limerick and Galway wouldn't be large enough. But in Dublin, you can be anonymous. And if you
can be anonymous in Dublin,
if you queue up for food, well, the odds are that nobody you know is going to see you, or nobody you know is going to know that you need help. But in the likes of Tullamore, if you go into a food bank, people will see you. No matter what you do, people will see you, and that's what terrifies people. They don't want to be seen by anybody.
No, no,
You know,
no.
and that's where I'm coming from. I go to them. All I need is their trust, because, you know, it's almost me pleading with them to come forward and look for help if they need help, because it horrifies me to know that there are hundreds of thousands of people out there. I used to operate on research that was carried out by two trade unions, Mandate and Unite, who said from research in 2013 that there were 600,000 people on our island that didn't have enough food to eat. Well, in 2018, late 2018, there was research carried out in NUIG, and I was contacted by a man that was involved in that. He's actually the grandson of a former Minister for Health. And he told me that, Ken, your figures are wrong. It's now 750,000 plus people that don't have enough food to eat on our island, and half of that number are children. So that's what horrifies me. I'm not even scratching the surface of this. And no charity, all the charities put together, we're not even scratching the surface of this thing, because people are going hungry purposely in order that their kids are fed, and women in particular. I know women that are going without food purposely for 1 day or 2 days or even 3 days a week, just so they can feed their kids.
And you know, since this COVID, it has made the problem worse, because there were places I know in my own city where I'm from, originally in Cork City, you had the penny dinners going back to the 1950s, where anybody can walk in for their breakfast, can walk in for their lunch and their supper in there every day of the week. They were running it. Now, because of this, that's gone.
Yeah.
And so therefore the problem has to be huge and much, much bigger. And I think you're dead right about food banks. I think they're an absolute blight on our in our country, or in any country, food banks, because the last thing I'd do if I was in that situation is to go to a food bank.
Yeah, exactly. Because you will be seen, and people
not think of the dignity of the human being at all when they're doing these things.
That is the problem, Pat, because I think not enough research by people who care enough has been done. You know, it's very easy for these larger charities to, and they'll go around with their emblems on the side of their vans, and
I know.
and they'll stop outside people's houses, and immediately that family is known as the family that gets help from that particular charity, and I think that's so wrong.
And I see them in Limerick as well at night with selling work. The volunteers do selling work. They pull up, and it's a takeaway now. They have soup, they have sandwiches and a hot stew. You know, it's just fantastic for people who need a hot meal. People who are on the streets, but that's different than young families. The challenges facing young families now. I don't even want to bear thinking about it. I know I live on my own frugally as I can, but I know people. I know a good few people in Shannon who are in dire straits continuously, and the COVID lockdown is decimating the communities. I know, I'm sure Ken up in Tullamore, I haven't been in Tullamore obviously for obvious reasons for a long time now, even passing through it one time. But should the businesses that are closed down there now, the shutters down, I mean, the challenge for Tullamore and all towns like it, even my own town back in Mallow, is some of those you and I both know that they won't open again.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that
bank branches are closing right, left, and centre.
Yeah.
There's a friend of ours living outside Templemore, and the bank is gone. The bank will be gone.
Yeah.
Can you just imagine that? People with pensions, I don't know, Ken. Are we going back? Are we going backwards?
Well, I only heard this morning that the PTSB Bank in Tullamore is they're losing all of their staff now. That is just going. The building will still be there, and you just go in and talk to a machine basically, and you deal with your cards. You know, the whole thing is wrong. It's just wrong. Yeah.
Getting back to the motion or the thing in Africa County Council, I mean, obviously I read that press release in full, you know, I read it the other night, and I read your letter as well. And what kind of response did you get from the county manager?
Do you want me to tell you the truth? I got no response, none whatsoever.
Oh yeah.
Now there is a meeting being held today at 4 p.m. I just found that out half an hour before we got an email sent to the councillors.
Yeah.
And there is a meeting between the council management, the HSE, and the Cathaoirleachs of each of the municipal districts in Offaly. In other words, all of the councillors won't be there. I won't be there, even though I was the only one that raised this subject. There's a myriad of problems here, because it goes to show how the political system works in this country. I'm supposed to email my questions to the Cathaoirleach of my municipal district, expecting that he asked those questions. Whereas if I was there, I would ask the questions, the relevant questions, and depending on the answer I got, I would have more questions.
But why wouldn't they have it for all the councillors to go to?
Pat, your guess is as good as mine. As far as I'm concerned, they could have done this via Zoom or whatever else. But it's not being done that way. Look, you read the press release itself, and I presume, you took from it what I took. It was just nonsensical. It was crazy stuff. And somebody has actually pointed out to me only this morning that they actually issued the very same press release last July. So this was just a copy and paste job. It doesn't make sense. They're trying to fool the people of Tullamore and Offaly into thinking everything is wonderful. There's no need to worry.
And, there are some counties that don't have any deaths or cases now for a while. But what about those? Are they, I can't, I've lost the will to analyze stuff anymore, because if the figures are telling you that it's X, Y, and Z, and the official line on these things are in direct opposite to that, surely there's head scratching going and said, we cannot go on like this. Please open up the country and let people have the intelligence and the wit to take their own precautions then, if they're in certain categories of people. Leave the businesses open.
Yeah, look, the other side of that would be that the workers in those businesses might not be happy to be in those situations. We'll say people in retail, the workers in their staff in there, the people who serve customers, they might not be happy to be to have their families open to this virus.
Multiples are. Yeah, but Ken, Tesco's and Dunn's, Lidl and Aldi have been open continuously since they started, right? There has been no major outbreak in the staff of COVID. None.
Yeah.
None whatsoever.
No.
And yet they're meeting thousands of people every week in their store.
You see, Pat, as far as I'm concerned, we haven't been told about any. Like, I do certainly believe that there is a virus out there, but unfortunately, I don't trust that this government has the capacity to actually give us real figures. They're coming up with figures, and we hear they're talking about deaths from February and deaths from January and some deaths from December. Yeah. And I know it takes some time, with postmortems and everything else. But it surely doesn't take that long to release this information.
No.
We know.
My own mum. I know my mum did not die from COVID.
Yeah.
Our own doctor told us. I know she did not. If it's any consolation, but it is to me.
Of course. Yeah.
It's important to know these things. And yet we could all go in and see her when she was dying, but we couldn't go in and see her when she was alive.
Yeah, that's it. Look, it just
of our
It's
system.
wrong. It's wrong.
It's all wrong.
It's insane. And a time will come when there will be a major investigation into all of this. There will be tribunals about this, and people will be,
Yeah.
we'll hear that such and such was done wrong, and that the behaviour of certain government officials or whatever in the HSE or NEFIT or whatever was wrong. But we're going through it now, and it's very easy to see why people have this COVID fatigue, because we are all browned off of having no real direction. We're waiting for the next big date now, the 5th of April. We've no
You're right.
idea what they're going to do or what they're going to say.
I mean, when we're finished this program here now, I can go into Aldi, I can go into Super Value, I can go into Tesco's, I can go into Dunn's, but I can't get my hair cut.
Yeah, it's totally, well, it's like this, Pat, I'm looking at you there now, and you must have somebody doing something with your hair, because
Oh, by Jesus, I tell you, I got a bit of sellotape on it.
Well, a month ago I got my grandson to cut my hair, and I think this week again I'll be getting him again to do the job again. But it's shocking, and we can laugh at it now. It's
I know.
But we can, and we have to see the bright side of this, because if we don't, we can't go around spreading doom and gloom.
No, you're right.
People need people like you and myself and others to actually boost them up, because
that's right. Look,
we need to give people some hope.
You have to maintain a routine. I know it's more easy said than done. I mean, you have a purpose. You have things to do every day, like myself. You have to maintain a routine, in your daily life, no matter what it is. If it's getting up at the same time every day and going for a walk, just have some kind of a positive routine and meet people. I'm lucky in that I have 5 or 6 very good friends we can hang around together. They all live in their own, so we've been like that since the start. Yeah. So we're a good network of support for each other as well, which is important for people,
Exactly. And, yeah. Well, it's like this, Pat. I do meet people every single day, and I do my best, as they do, to keep our distance. But the one thing that we always, no matter who it is I meet, I always have a laugh and a joke with them, because it's important to keep the spirit up in people, because being, with doom and gloom, we're just going to get nowhere.
No. I mean, hopefully the sporting activities and all the other things will come into train in the next month or two,
Look, stopping people from playing golf and pitch and putt, even though I play neither, but that just does not make sense to me.
That's daft altogether now. I'll agree with you.
It's totally crazy. It just doesn't make sense.
I know, that's out in the fresh air, and you won't be exactly tripping over each other,
No, absolutely.
Contrast that with the rugby match last weekend, rugby matches, and they all 30 players flying up each other, and
exactly. And we know those people actually go home to their families then, and their families then meet other people as well. So, what's the sense in
it? As you said, I think it's obvious for you and I, and the listeners can draw their own conclusion to this. We know that many things do not make sense. If something doesn't make sense to me, you'll either ridicule it or ignore it.
Yeah.
If a directive doesn't make sense, and if it's not for everybody, these directives, like the farcical 5 kilometers, if that's not a directive that is for every single person, then the people who are expected to police it, so to speak, they won't be able to do it, because everyone knows it's not for everybody.
Yeah, look, Pat, I've spoken to a lot of guards on different checkpoints, and the guard here confused as well. They don't want to be on the streets there, because they really see this as directionless as well. They don't see any reason for it or the purpose for it, and and the morale in Garda Síochána is bad enough without treating them like that and putting them on the streets and demanding that they
most guards will use their common sense and say, look,
of course,
this is completely nuts. I'm not saying that out loud, but they can see if you have a ball turn in your car, they can see if you have no tax, no insurance. But the idea, Are you 5 or 6 kilometers from your house? How can you police it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's nuts.
It sounds like something that came from the local council of Killinascully, or
Now,
Ballymegash years ago.
yes. Before we finish up, Ken, for this edition, and delighted to have you on again, and
No,
people who not alone are a rock of sense, because people, Counsellor Ken Smollen is our guest from Tullamore, and Ken has a KS food charity as well, which is doing fantastic work in the Midlands area, and I've been reading about some shop in Roscommon, was it Deals?
Deals in Roscommon are the latest. Deals in Tullamore were the first Deals outlet. I collect an awful lot of food from there, and it's people, their customers, that are making those donations there. And now Deals in Mullingar are doing the same. Deals in Athlone are doing the same. And Deals in Roscommon.
You'll have to get another 1 or 2 van drivers.
Well, yes, I totally agree with you. You see, my life is taken up now completely between the food appeal and council work, because I have a lot of council work to do. And things are going to change this year. They have to change, because I'm busier. Look, I wish there was 25 hours in the day.
I think, like yourself, if you want someone to do something, ask a busy man.
Exactly.
It's very true. I know it's not what I was saying, but it's very true, actually. It is very true.
And I'll tell you one thing, Pat, it's absolutely a fantastic feeling to know that you have done something for somebody and they really appreciate it. For instance, I got a message from a family this morning who, they have a home, and they have a forever home this morning. And I have been fighting for that for the last 6 months. But this morning they got the word that they have that now, and they were so grateful, and that's a fantastic feeling. And just the little messages I get from people, even when I deliver food to them, it drives me on to do more.
Yeah, absolutely, Ken. And as I said, we here in LiR Media in Limerick are doing our bit, and we're hoping people like yourself. Anyway, we won't leave it 6 months the next time, because we've been busy trying to get out. But our viewing figures in are gone up since, and then we're tidying away despite the lockdown.
Well, I'm certainly not surprised with that, Pat. You're doing a fantastic job there.
And fair play to you. September, a good few thousand people have watched it now, and they're still watching because it's up on our YouTube channel. By the way, all our shows are up on our YouTube channel for the lads, and we have our fingers crossed to get an FM license, but we don't know will that kick in now. But hopefully we will.
Well, let's hope so.
Keep interviewing people like yourself, Ken, because it highlights that people can do some good no matter what it is in their own locality, and it shows the power.
Teamwork and people power can achieve anything. I am convinced it can achieve anything.
So, Ken, from this edition of LiR Confidential on LiR Media, I'm delighted to have spoken to you again, and you took time out. You can put your feet up if you can for a half an hour or so now.
Thanks very much, Pat. I appreciate that. And look, the best of luck to yourself and all of your team there.
It's our pleasure, Ken, and thank you, and good morning to you now, and the best of luck in the future, Ken, and we'll catch up with you again in a few weeks' time.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Pat.
Thanks, Ken.
Bye-bye.
Take care.